Hello, welcome back. In this video, we're going to learn about two statements in Java called break and continue. We're going to see how they are used in loops and what is the difference between the two of them. Let's go ahead and create a new class and we'll name it break and continue. Create our main method. And in here, first I'm going to create a for loop that displays number 1 through 10, right? So it goes like for and then parenthesis. The first one is your initialization, which would be int. Let's use the number I, number 1. So we want to display number 1 first. The second part is the condition, if you remember. So that would be I less than or less than 11 or less than or equals 10. And the third one is the expression that executes each loop iteration. And we want to increment I by 1, right? And in here, we want to display value in I of I, right? So if you quickly run this, you'd get numbers 1 through 10. Hopefully, there you go with it. I'm going to expand this a little bit. Now, let's say for break, we don't want to display anything more than phi, right? To do that, you could technically just enter phi here, but we're going to see how to do it with break. So once you encounter phi, we don't want to display any longer. If that's the case, and if you want 5 displayed, you would type the code after the system.out. But if you don't want phi, you would type it here. Let's say we don't want phi. So if I equals, if you remember the equality is 2 equals phi, we want to break. Let's quickly run it to see what happens. So you got 1 through 4 and then nothing else. So what happened here was when I becomes phi, this condition is true. And what break does is it totally breaks out of the loop where it's coded. When you highlight break, Eclipse highlights which block it belongs to. So break basically takes the control out of the loop, right? Um, Again, like I said, depends on where the break is, the program would execute that way, but all break does is take it out of the loop. So if you run it now, you would get number phi, which displays here first, but then we check for equality and then we break. So that's basically break. If you encounter a particular scenario in the loop where you know you don't want to execute the loop any longer, you would use break. Now this is where the difference between break and continue comes. Continue basically just skips that iteration of the loop but still keeps the control within the loop, whereas break completely takes it out. Let's do an example to see what we're talking about. So let's take the code and put it back here where it was. Now let's say our goal is to not display phi. You want to display everything except phi, which means when I becomes phi, we don't want to do the display, but we want to take the control back here to increment I to 6 because we want 6 through 10 displayed anyway, right? So if you hit comment this out and say continue, let's run it to see what happens. So you got 1 through 4, there is no phi, but 6 through 10. That's the only and biggest difference between break and continue. Break takes the control out of the loop. Continue just skips that iteration. So when I became phi, continue was encountered. The rest of the statements in the block for that particular iteration only is ignored, and the control goes back here where I becomes 6, right? And when it comes here, I equals 5 would not be true any longer. 6 would not be equal to phi. So continue will execute only one time when I is phi, and we are skipping the printing. So that's the difference between break and continue. You would use one or the other based on what your needs are. Try to play with this. You can change the counter here, or you can add other conditions to see if you can skip some iterations, or you want to break out of the loop. Try different scenarios. Make sure you are comfortable with it. But that's basically break and continue. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.